Welcome to the podcast, where we teach you how to create marketing that pops. Get ready for refreshing conversations with industry experts, trendsetters, and creative minds that'll leave you bubbling with inspiration. Get ready to turn up the volume on your business. Let's get popping. Hi, I'm Olivia Johnson. I'm one of your hosts from the Marketing That Pops podcast, where we sit down with leaders, entrepreneurs, innovators to talk about what's working in marketing today. From strategy and branding to technology and creative campaigns, we're bringing you the insights straight from the experts shaping the industry. Thanks for tuning in to this special Best of episode, where we'll highlight some of our favorite conversations and key takeaways. This episode is brought to you by ThrivePOP, a woman-led marketing agency helping brands stand out and grow. Our team of strategists, designers, social media specialists, and web developers work alongside companies to build creative campaigns that drive results. At ThrivePOP, we create marketing that inspires, connects, and helps your businesses shine. To learn more, visit thrivepop.com or book a meeting with one of our marketing strategists at thrivepop.com/contact us. Now let's jump into our favorite moments from the past conversations.
I think HVAC plays a major role in sustainability. A lot of facilities that I would either do plan set reviews for, or go into facilities after they were already built. There's not a they're not teaching this in architecture and engineering school, that now you have plants inside, you're adding heat, you have transpiration. All of these different factors where you're basically trying to control a tropical environment indoors. Right. And so when engineers get a hold of these types of things and they haven't designed for it before, because typically in engineering you're trying to just cut out your solar gains that are based on the insulative value of your building. Mm-hmm. And so when you add your outside on an inside environment, it's really confusing for engineers to try to overcome that. And they've gotten a lot better in recent years. But in the beginning, the response to that was, okay, just over-engineer it by 30%, or over-engineer it by 50%, or under-engineer it, because all of these things really add, the price of your cogs will go up if you have an over-engineered facility. You're then paying 30% higher construction margin on equipment and implementation of that equipment. And so good to have, a little bit of respect so that you can account for record highs and record lows as we see with climate change and things like that. Days are getting hotter, winters are getting colder. So you want to account for those things, but not by 30 to 50% overkill on your capacity.
I think people don't understand what storytelling is, or they misrepresent what storytelling is.
I would agree.
I'll give you my definition, right? Like, I'm not saying it's the right definition. I'm just going to say it's my definition. Is people learn in stories, people connect in stories. And what you're trying to do in a story is get somebody into the story where they can understand what that person's going through. They can look at that story and say, hey, maybe that's me. And then you're taking them on that journey. So all stories have kind of like the hero, right? They have the damsel in distress, right? They have fighting the dragon. They have the twists and turns. I mean, like, look at Shrek. Look at any story. Okay. Yeah. Any successful story has that. So, okay, you're the business, you're the knight, right? The client is the damsel in distress. The twists and turns are how you got there. And then slaying the dragons, getting them the transformation that they wanted at the end of it. Right. Like, if you're going to break it down, like real simple. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get them to, I think the term was like an effigy's journey, or I don't remember what, but you're trying to put them there. You're trying to get them to understand your point of view. And so if you can bring them to see your point of view and then take them on the journey, right? So it's all about hooking them in, getting them to see from your perspective. And then really you got to understand what is the journey you're taking them on and where you're trying to go is really important. And then if you understand that and you can successfully take them on that journey, you can get them to where they want to go, whatever that is.
What's happening in the industry is it is a little bit frightening because there's a lot of regulation in place for medical and adult use cannabis, marijuana, and that is regulated through dispensaries and through the government by state. And all of a sudden we're witnessing this Wild West that we don't quite know how to manage yet. So there are always a host of bad actors, and it's not that THCA product being sold online is not going through the same stringent testing that is what happens in a dispensary. Even in dispensaries in the medical market, there's people who get things through. So, there's bad actors everywhere. So my best advice on that is to make sure that you trust who your sources are.
Well, I always think that sales and marketing are like cousins. They're not the same. And there's often a there's kind of confusion oftentimes because people think, oh, sales and marketing, because you hear those two terms together a lot. So they think like, oh, it's the same thing, but it actually isn't. And one of the things I think is a real important distinction is that marketing's job is to build awareness in the marketplace and potentially bring leads in the door. That's marketing's job. Sales job is to take that lead and turn it into a prospect and then eventually a client. It's sales job to close the deal. It's not marketing's. And I think a lot of times there's a misconception like, well, I spent all this money on marketing and I got all these leads, but none of them closed. Well, what was your sales process? And they're like, what do you mean a sales process? Well, you have to have a sales process. Like that's not marketing's job. It's not their job necessarily to close the lead. It's great when they do. Like that's awesome. People see something online and they're like, oh, I'm just going to buy that. And they don't need any interaction. But most of us, that's not how business is done. If you're doing business that way, fantastic. But a lot of times, especially again, in the space that I work with coaches and consultants, and they have to have conversations with clients. And so expecting marketing to do the job of sales is unrealistic. And also expecting sales to do the job of marketing. Like I have to say to people all the time that want my opinion about marketing, I say like, I can give you my opinion, but I'm not a marketing expert. I'm a sales expert. If we can talk about the sales process, if we can talk about the sales conversation, I can give you something that's going to make a difference. But if you want to know how to optimize your ads, I'm not your gal.
Social justice, really, just all of the challenges around that, like really was at the forefront of the national, if not global conversation in 2020.
Absolutely.
You think about how just the reaction to people after George Floyd was murdered. And then I felt the cannabis industry started to really embrace these ideas around social equity. And it, like a lot of companies were saying, yeah, we need to lean in and do our part to contribute to a more fair and inclusive industry. And I felt like where I was sitting at that time, I was in a position where I was lucky enough to work at MJ Biz. I had traveled to multiple countries. I had met every type of stakeholder that was interested in this industry. I knew that so many additional markets were about to open. And I felt like I wanted to do something that could make it easier for people, especially those minority and underrepresented people that wanted to have a chance to start a business, generate some wealth, make sure that I could use like my skill set, relationships, and knowledge to make it easier for them to enter the industry, to navigate its challenges, to build relationships with people that I had formed strong bonds with. And that was really the big motivation around it. I felt like so much of the conversations around social equity were policy driven, which is, but I also felt like there was a big gap in educating those prospective social equity license applicants about the realities of starting a business. And I felt if I could solve the problem more from the business, the industry side, then we could help people where policy stopped.
Thanks for listening with us today. Stay tuned for the latest in web marketing and design from ThrivePOP. Want to be a pop star? Head over to thrivepop.com/podcast to join our mailing list for episode notifications, sneak peeks, listener feedback, and more.